It was a scorching June afternoon, the kind where the pavement shimmered like burning coals. People moved fast, heads down. No one wanted to linger. But at the corner of Fairmont, where polished skyscrapers met crumbling government walls, a crowd was forming, part curiosity, part unease. Then came the sirens. 3 police cruisers screeched to a halt, doors flew open, and 6 white officers spilled into the street. They surrounded a black man, early 20s, lean but steady, dressed in a worn military uniform. A swollen canvas bag clung to his back, his hands smeared with paint. He stood before a half-finished mural on a forgotten city wall. 2 snarling dogs, a man in uniform clutching a child, color and dust, breath and motion, frozen mid-story. "Hey, you, drop the brush. Step away from the wall. You're defacing public property." The man looked up. His eyes were dark and quiet. He didn't run. He didn't speak. He placed the brush on the ground, with careful grace, then stood firm between the wall and those who wanted to erase it. One officer stepped forward, voice sharp and laced with hate. "Take that uniform off."
Wait a second. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps us.
"People like you don't get to wear it." Silence. No plea. No anger. Only the low hiss of wet paint drying. The officer growled and pulled out his cuffs. And then the street gasped. From behind a dumpster, 2 massive Belgian Malinois lunged into the open. They didn't bark. They didn't hesitate. They moved like lightning and planted themselves in front of the man, teeth bared, bodies tense as bowstrings. The officer recoiled, stumbling back. Someone shouted, "K9 units." Doubt flickered across the faces of the officers. Batons were drawn, hands hovered over radios, but the dogs didn't attack. They watched, every twitch, every breath, waiting. The man reached down, brushed a hand gently along one dog's back. The growl softened, but the fire in their eyes did not fade. Phones came out. One by one, people started filming. By 30 seconds, there were a dozen cameras. By the end of the minute, the world was watching. A black man in silence. 2 dogs, standing guard. A mural that wasn't finished. A story no one wanted to hear, but couldn't look away from. A woman clutched her child and whispered, "He controls them. These people are dangerous." A shaky voice asked, "What even is this?" No one answered, but the hashtags came. Stolen valor, attack dogs in the city, threat or truth, 56 seconds. That's all it took to ignite a city. Some cried violence, some screamed fraud, some whispered, "He didn't look like the bad guy." But no one knew the whole story. Not yet. Behind the outrage and accusations, something waited. Not vengeance, not spectacle, but memory. The encounter on Fairmont Street didn't end in gunfire or blood, but it cracked something open. A slow-moving earthquake had begun. Caleb was arrested. When questioned, he gave nothing but his name, and one line, repeated again and again when asked why he wore the uniform. "I'm looking for my foster father. He was a soldier. I don't remember much, but I know he's alive." That night, he was booked on 3 official charges: impersonating military personnel, vandalizing public property, and handling large, unvaccinated animals in a public area. The 2 Belgian Malinois, muzzled, shackled, were hauled straight to the city's animal quarantine facility. On paper, they were marked aggressive tendencies, no verifiable owner, behavioral monitoring required. When Caleb heard, his knuckles turned white. He didn't cry, didn't shout, didn't plead, just whispered, "Please don't keep them in cages too small." No one answered. The next morning, the investigation team was sent to search the place Caleb had been living. A half-collapsed warehouse in the industrial district. It had once stored construction supplies. Now, it barely held its own roof. In the basement, hidden behind sacks of dust-choked rags and crusted paint cans, they found it, a wooden box, oak, locked with a rusted clasp. A young officer broke the latch and lifted the lid. Inside, nestled in black cloth, was a laminated photograph, faded and brown at the edges. 3 figures stood in the frame. A white man in a special forces uniform, sharp-featured and rigid. A black boy, maybe 8, small and nervous. At their feet, 2 dogs identical to the Belgian Malinois now in quarantine. The young officer furrowed his brow. He hesitated. The older one beside him scoffed. Laminated? What is this? Some kind of pity prop. Probably fake. Something he found to sell his little sob story. They tossed the photo back in the box, logged it as evidence, and moved on to checking the paint cans. No one asked where the photo came from. No one asked if it was real. That evening, the City News 6 p.m. broadcast aired a special segment. Footage flickered first of the mural left unfinished. The soldier's face still in half shadow. Then, Caleb's eyes behind jailhouse bars. The anchor's voice was cold, clinical. A fraud in uniform, or a manipulative stunt dressed in military grief, with no ID, no records, and no verified background. Caleb has divided the public. Some call him a protest artist. Others warn he's a dangerous figure capable of stirring emotion through paint and dogs. The report ended with a still shot, just 4 seconds long, of the laminated photo. It was the first time it appeared on air. 4 seconds. But it was enough. Across the city, in a quiet Lakefield estate nestled beneath old oaks and wealth, a silver-haired man sat frozen mid-sip, a porcelain teacup suspended between table and mouth. General Malcolm Whitmore, former commander of the elite K-9 7th Brigade, decorated across 2 continents, known for steel discipline and combat mastery. With or without a leash, his eyes locked onto the photo on screen. He rose slowly. The cup clinked gently back onto its saucer. He took 3 steps forward, stopped inches from the TV, and lifted a trembling hand. His fingers brushed the figure in the photo. The man in uniform. Himself. Something cracked open in his chest. A soundless snap, like a locked memory being torn from the deep. He pressed the intercom. Get me the address of the jail holding the boy from the news. Immediately. Sir? Are you sure? I'm going. Myself. Right now. Less than an hour later, a black SUV shot out from the Whitmore estate, weaving through red lights with emergency clearance. The driver gripped the wheel, glancing nervously in the mirror. He had never seen the old general like this. Should I alert the precinct, sir? No. They'll know when I arrive. Should we verify his identity with the military database? I don't need a damn database. Just drive. I need to see that boy. Now. In his lap, the photo printed from a shaky screenshot trembled with every bump in the road. And in the general's hand, it warmed, like a memory trying to come back to life. While Caleb remained in detention, the community was still bitterly divided. One side believed he was nothing more than a dangerous fraud, manipulating public sympathy for attention. The other side, quieter, smaller, felt that something didn't quite add up, and that a deeper truth might be hidden beneath the surface. But to him, General Malcolm Whitmore, a legendary former commander of the U.S. Special Forces, the story wasn't just a headline. The moment the photo was aired on the 8 p.m. news, the very photo Caleb had guarded for years in a small wooden box, Whitmore felt like lightning had struck him. That photo, it was real. The white man in the picture, 15 years younger, in full uniform, stood beside a small black boy, with 2 loyal service dogs at their side. The bond in the photo was undeniable. For a long second, General Whitmore froze in front of the television. That boy. I remember now. That's my Caleb, he murmured. And then, he personally drove to the detention center and demanded to see the young man accused of impersonating a soldier. The guards and administration were stunned. A legendary general appearing at their facility was unimaginable. Sorry, sir, he's not on any list for clemency or pardon. I'm not here for that. Take me to the visitation room. Now, his voice was calm, but unshakable. His eyes, icy and steady, yet behind them was a storm rising. None dared question him further. Caleb entered the room, shackled, bruised, his expression steeled. He had no idea who the white-haired man with the stern face was, until their eyes met. And Caleb, whose gaze had grown used to mockery and suspicion, suddenly faltered. A flicker of something broke through. "Malcolm, is that you, Dad?" he whispered, voice cracking. The general didn't reply. He stepped forward slowly. He looked at that face, that skin, those eyes, that voice, and memories flooded in like a dam breaking. Memories. On afternoons in war zones, a little black boy sketching beside a field tent, of two massive yet gentle dogs curled around the child protectively. During training drills, the boy begged to join, of tiny hands clutching him at night. "I'm scared of the bombs, sir." And then, the boy had stopped calling him sir. Sometimes it was just Malcolm. Sometimes, Dad. Until that cursed morning, bombs, smoke, blinding pain, then darkness. He'd awoken in a military hospital, disoriented. Doctors called it temporary post-traumatic amnesia. He was told his unit had been lost in an airstrike. Some dead, others unaccounted for. Among the deceased, Caleb, and the two dogs. He believed it, and for 15 years he had lived with the certainty that 3 lives had been erased from the earth. But now, all 3, the boy and the dogs, were here, of flesh, of blood, of unwavering love that never forgot. "I'm sorry," the general whispered, sinking to his knees before Caleb. "I didn't come for you. I thought you and the dogs were gone forever." Caleb wept, not from anger, but from the overwhelming proof that what he believed had always been true. The father who had held him through gunfire, taught him how to draw, showed him how to mix colors from stubs of broken crayons, was alive. He'd simply lost his way. "Never blamed you. I believed, if I kept drawing, one day, you'd see." The news exploded within hours. General Malcolm Whitmore stood before national media and declared, "The young man detained in Madison County is my son." The story about him wandering with 2 dogs and painting in search of his father is entirely true. The entire nation held its breath. Whitmore displayed the old photo, along with internal military training records identifying Caleb as a ward he had adopted during the Kandahar campaign. He detailed Caleb's habits, his personality, the precise names of the 2 trained dogs, Rex and Luna, and the fact that Caleb was left-handed when drawing. "None of this is coincidence. That is my son, and I will do whatever it takes to bring him home." The truth was like a blade, cutting through every bias, every accusation, every snide remark from social media. The black boy, once labeled a fraud, threat, attention seeker, was in fact the son of one of the most respected generals in the country. The nation was stunned. And then, one by one, they began to bow their heads. The iron gate of the detention center slowly creaked open. Caleb, a young black man once labeled a military imposter, stepped out into the soft glow of the late afternoon. His worn, tattered uniform had been returned after the investigation, along with an official release letter that read, "All charges have been dropped." Waiting at the gate was not a law enforcement officer or a lawyer, but an elderly man in a crisp, formal military uniform. His face was still as stern as it had been on the battlefield, but his eyes now shimmered with emotion. Caleb hesitated for a moment, then ran forward, his arms wrapped around the man like a child finding his father again after a long, violent storm. "It's me, Dad. I missed you so much." General Whitmore, the legendary commander once lost to memory after a traumatic brain injury, held his son tightly. "And I forgot you for all those years." No cameras, no commentary, just a moment where 2 broken souls found each other again, like 2 halves of a map aligning beneath the hush of a late spring breeze. Moments later, Rex and Luna, released from the quarantine center, came bounding into view. They barked, wagged their tails furiously, and pressed their heads into Caleb's chest like they'd never been apart. A nearby reporter raised his camera to capture it, then slowly lowered it. Some scenes aren't meant to be boxed into footage. Some are meant to live inside the human heart. A week later, at a press conference at City Hall, General Whitmore stood before dozens of cameras. He wore no medals, sat on no throne of power. Instead, he stood humbly, right beside Caleb. "I was once a hero," he began, "but then I was injured, lost my memory, and with it, lost a child and 2 loyal companions. I thought I was strong, but I abandoned the very boy who called me dad, and the two creatures that never left my side through fire and war." He paused, looked at Caleb, then out into the crowd. My son Caleb never gave up. He didn't need a birth certificate to prove who he was. He didn't need media coverage to earn attention. He just needed a wall, a paintbrush, and a heart that refused to give in. I've lost many years, but my son never lost me. Silence fell over the hall. A female journalist wiped away tears, unable to hold them back. As an act of restoration, the city council invited Caleb to create a mural in the center plaza, the very place where he had once been arrested for vandalism. This time, the wall had no fences. It was tall, clean, and guarded by an honor guard. Caleb stood before it, brush in hand. Rex and Luna lay quietly at his feet. Far behind him, General Whitmore stood without speeches or commands, just watching as his son poured his soul into every stroke. On unveiling day, thousands gathered. Not a curious crowd anymore, but people who came to listen, to understand, to apologize. The white sheet was pulled down, and the mural left everyone speechless. On a deep black background stood a soldier in uniform, his left arm bandaged, his right hand resting on the shoulder of a beaming black boy. Beside them were two dogs, one standing guard, the other looking back. In the far right corner, sunlight pierced through the darkness, a dawn breaking over shadow, a symbol of hope finally blooming, a symbol of reunion and unbreakable loyalty. Caleb stood among the people. Hands reached out to shake his, voices offered apologies, faces shared their tears, but he only smiled. A small white boy tugged at his mother's sleeve. "Mom, I want to paint a wall too." She bent down, smiling softly. "Why do you want to paint?" "So people remember those who got forgotten." As the ceremony ended, Caleb stood beside General Whitmore. "You don't need to search for your father anymore," the old man whispered. "From now on, just move forward and paint the things we missed." Caleb nodded. Beside him, Rex and Luna lay side by side, their eyes calm, as if they understood everything. And on that great wall, their image remains, not for the past, not for glory, but for love, loyalty, and a promise that was never forgotten. Some reunions don't happen because of miracles. They happen because one heart refuses to give up. Caleb, the black boy once branded an imposter, a threat, someone unworthy of trust, found his long-lost father with nothing but memory and loyalty as his guide. In a city chilled by silence and fractured by deep-rooted racial prejudice, a forgotten son and an old soldier, embraced through tears, flanked by two dogs who had never once forgotten their master. Their story isn't just about blood. It's about honor, about a love that endured beyond time, loss, and even the harshest misunderstandings. The mural in the city's heart doesn't simply show a father, a son, and two dogs emerging from darkness. It stands as a reminder to the world that sometimes, to see the light, you must first walk through the deepest night. And sometimes, the one you doubted the most is the only one who's been walking toward you all along, step by step, steadfast, unforgotten.